All right, welcome everybody. This is the Matt Hilton Show. Thank you for tuning in today. And if you are watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. And if you haven't yet, go to Facebook also and like our page, the Matt Hilton Show. Share, comment, do all the things, help us get more followers, and we would like some more comments as well. And we do have a studio audience, so welcome to our audience. Yay. Thank you for being here and supporting the show as well. All right, y'all, if you have been a Dallasite for a while, you may have heard of the last name Volk. We have a special guest here today. She is a fascinating person, and I want to hear her inspiring story. We have Allison Volk with us today. Allison, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. Thanks for agreeing to come.
Yeah.
So what an honor to have you here.
Oh.
I grew up in the Dallas area, and it's when Kathy said that she had gotten Allison Volk to be here, I was like, what? So thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. Kathy's so great. So
yes, she is.
I'm
Yes, she is. Yes, and we'll talk more about Kathy in a
good.
little while as well.
Yay.
So with that being said, tell me a little bit about you and growing up being a Volk. What was that like?
Well, I don't think I had it as exciting as my father had it growing up being a Volk. Because, you know, the department stores were, they closed in the mid 70s. So or maybe late 70s. So, but I did get a chance to know my grandfather, but he did die when I was relatively young. But yeah, no, the history is really cool. And I think I've always had a sense of pride for the city of Dallas because, you know, my great-grandfather and grandfather were part of, you know, very few people that really were the founding members of Dallas.
Right.
And that, you know, expansion from downtown to the park cities. And I've always kind of been fascinated by the stories and, you know, all the different family members that, you know, have stories from when it was dirt roads and horses. And, you know, my father was born in 1928. So he has some, you know, really cool stories as well.
So what is one of those stories that you hear at all the family reunions that you're like, oh, here's that story again? But is there one of those stories?
I don't know. I mean, I think they're all extraordinary. I think, you know, I think the department store, you know, element was always something that meant a lot to me. And, you know, I had a store, a men's and women's small store in Manhattan Beach, California for a while. So It was really exciting for me to be able to like do so much research and dive into the history of all of it. And, you know, I had that represented throughout the store in California a little bit. And, you know, I mean, they started in the late 1800s. And one of the kind of cool stories is that, so my great-grandfather had it in the late 1800s, and then my grandfather, and, you know, my grandfather had it at the same time, had Volk, it was Volk Brothers department store. It started the first one on Elm Street downtown, and the rival was Neiman Marcus, right? And so Stanley and my grandfather were friends, but competitors. And they said that back then that, you know, people that were Jewish would shop at Neiman's, and then people that weren't Jewish would shop at Volk's. And so I guess it was somewhat, you know, segregated in that way, which I thought was interesting.
Right.
And then my grandfather had decided that he wanted to open a second location and that he was going to do it, you know, north, which was Highland Park Village.
Yeah, so I read something about that, and they called it the suburbs.
The suburbs.
And I was like,
yes.
The suburbs is Highland Park Village, or the next one was, I think, where was it?
Live Oak and Spillman.
Yes, Live Oak. And I was like, really? Like that's
those are
the
suburbs. So yeah, and so Stanley felt that it would be, you know, an unwise decision for my grandfather to open a second store in a suburban store because it would pull away from the traffic and the revenue that was at the downtown store. And so my grandfather took this big risk and, you know, and had the second store and then ultimately more. But after he opened the second was when Stanley was like, oh, that is, you know, he's doing great. Like, that's a good idea. So then they ended up, of course, having, you know, multiple locations, obviously. And but
wow. And I read something, too, that he helped, I guess, with the seed or a seed planted in the minds of the Nordstrom brothers
Right.
up in Seattle
Yeah,
of
so-
expanding their operation.
Yeah, so he was the head of the National Shoe Society. So he like announced the shoe ration in World War II and was just very involved with all the retail things on a national level. And so yeah, Nordstrom was started by two brothers in Seattle, and so they were also a shoe store when they started. So Volks was a shoe store when they started, and then went into a full department store. And so he helped them go from being a shoe store to a department store. And at one point, they asked him to partner, and they were going to make it, Nordstrom Volk or Volk Nordstrom, and he declined that offer, which maybe wasn't the smartest decision. But I don't know.
Well, so I have a question as far as, because you mentioned Neiman's,
Right.
you mentioned Nordstrom,
Right.
and they're both in existence today.
Yeah.
What was the reason for Volk, selling and going out of business?
Yes. So my grandfather partnered with somebody that was not doing proper business or not smart business, I guess. And I think it had more to do with the books and the buying. So I think that was the downfall. And I think at one point my grandfather realized he needed to, sell it off. And so he actually partnered with Colbert's, which is a long time ago. So it was Colbert Volks for a while, and then it just went into Colbert's.
Okay.
So I know. I was like,
Wow.
oh, I just missed it. And my father didn't want to take over the stores. So, that's another thing. So my father worked in the stores for a while, but he wanted to be an architect. And so that was really where his passion was, and community planning and service and, other things. So
Okay,
I
so
just
you
missed
growing
it.
up, so
I
you
was
growing
like,
up, you
oh.
didn't really grow up in the department store.
No, but
Okay.
I did intern at Neiman. So I was
Okay.
like, okay, well, I missed the boat on the Volks, but okay, let me know more about Neiman's.
Right.
And so I read every book Stanley Marcus ever wrote. He was my mentor. He was I really had so much respect for how he, manned the business.
So you
and
knew Stanley.
I did.
Okay.
He was an icon. He's
Right.
a legend. And, I think that, retail, it was so different back then. And it's, it's so much more, mass produced in China and e-commerce. It's such a different playing field than it used to be.
Is there anything, Allison, that Stanley Marcus taught you that you still use today?
I think customer service, clientele service.
And what does that look like?
He was exceptional with understanding how to service a client and how to have exceptional clientele service. And, you're groomed to have your book of business. And, he had a method for it. And so it was this beautiful way of nurturing that relationship and really getting to know the client and what they want. And I think that I use that in my mentality for everything I do, and just being thoughtful to all sides of things too. So having the PR firm, I've always said we're in the service industry. Our clients, they are our bosses. We are servicing them. This is
Right.
an honor and a privilege. And then also being thoughtful to what is their book of business, if that's their space, right? If it's a product or a service, what can we do to build their book of business? Because at the end of the day, they're looking to generate revenue. Usually that's the end game and the goal. So just how do you nurture that? And I think Stanley was kind of he was brilliant with that concept.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned your PR firm.
Yes.
So how long has that been in existence, and is there a specialty of?
Oh gosh. So I kind of fell into it. I think, I was in LA for 10 years and I did a lot of entertainment. I was in the entertainment space, so I understood entertainment PR. And then, as I mentioned, I had a boutique for 5 years. And so I just knew a lot of people and had a network, and was just, had friends that were producing TV shows and were writing for magazines, and I just knew people, so I was easily able to get my store a lot of press or marketing or things of that nature.
Okay.
And, a publicist came in one day and asked if I would help her with some accounts, and I'm like, I own a store, and I think I only understood PR as far as talent representation, and I didn't realize it could be attached to, a product in that way. I didn't know that really was what I was doing. I just thought I was marketing because that's just what I knew to do. So anyway, so I was like, oh, I guess I am, okay, yeah, I can get you on TV and I can get you in magazines. And it was more about like, oh, I know this person, I know that person. And anyway, so that kind of morphed into an addition of having the store. And then when I came back to Dallas, I ended up, doing PR and having this agency, and it was just like, whoa, what just happened? But it was so fun. I mean, I love it.
And have you gotten into a niche market?
So yes, that was your question. So my clients have always been across all spaces, and I mean, everything from nonprofits to banks to population healthcare companies to fashion brands to doing events for InStyle magazine or Super Bowl. I mean, it's just been all over the place.
Yeah.
But what I try to do is always make sure everything's brand aligned. So if it's not something that I or my network or I feel the company would represent, be excited about, support. If I'm not eating at that restaurant, then I don't want to do the PR for it.
Sure.
So I think it's things that I'm genuinely passionate about and believe in, and yeah.
Well, what are some upcoming projects that you're working
upcoming
on?
projects.
Can you share any of it?
Yes. Gosh, so I mean, there's so much going on right now. One of the neat things that I've done is there's an agency that's out of Vegas called 17 Agency, and I've been working a lot with them for years now with some of their Dallas-based restaurants, and so we're working right now with the Harwood District, and I think the cool thing about that is that they want more of a focus. They have like 16 something restaurants, right? And they have the hotel now, and they've got all these different things. But the focus is about them being a neighborhood. And so Visit Dallas just identified them as a neighborhood. And there's, this inspiration that the family had from something called the Happy City, which is based on a book by Charles Montgomery. And I'm just kind of diving into that and just loving that whole kind of concept of urban development and that happy city and what Harwood's doing. And it's a bigger umbrella picture to tell and to educate our city on that. It's a neighborhood. Like you could do multiple things, in one day, overnight. Like it's so fun. Yeah.
Is there a project that you've worked on, Allison, in the past that you're like, oh, that was just so awesome?
Oh my gosh, so many projects.
I know, there's so many, but it's one to stand out.
Maybe my dad's book signings. I don't know.
That's a cool book.
So my dad, he has been a client forever. And so he was an architect, but he did 30 plus years of community service for our city as well. And he also was a photographer. And so this book is a collection of his photography from 1950 to, I guess, early 2000s. And then he has short essays in there about, his philosophy on, seeing or just life. And it's beautiful. And my dad's pretty exceptional, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, this is such a great piece, to put together. I love that this is going to stay around for forever.
Yes,
right?
It's his legacy.
It's his legacy.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
And he
has
has
did you
archives.
capture all of this, or did someone else work on it?
Oh, he did. So he's an architect. So he did the layout and design. He did it for maybe a decade. It was a whole project.
Wow.
But yeah, and so his book, and he has archives with his architecture, his community service work, his photography, his writings. He has tons of writings. And so he put together an archive along with this book. And so it's with the Dallas Historic Society, the Dallas Public Library. And the book is also, he is a graduate of Yale, class of 49. And his book is at the Beinecke, which is a pretty big deal.
That is a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you, outside of business, what are you involved in? What do you do for fun? What do you do in charity work? What things are you involved in?
So first of all, I feel very fortunate and blessed to have the most amazing friends, and I love, my favorite thing in the world is to spend time with my friends and my family. For rescue or for charity work, I love rescue groups. So I've been a big advocate for Recycled Palms, which is a dog rescue group that specializes in Pomeranians, and I'm now at 3. So I had one named Squirrel who went to heaven. I have one now named Foxy, and my dad has one that he's named Cuddles.
Cuddle.
Cuddles. And so Foxy is also a mascot for FIDO, which is Fashion Industry Dog Organization. And any and
what
all.
is that?
Oh, well, it's
Fashion industry
okay. So
dog.
that was when I knew I had arrived. I was sitting there and I was like, wow. So it essentially is the fashion industry of Dallas. So like a lot of like Campbell, Kim Dawson, like whether it's like hair and makeup people, lots of models, right? And they raise money to support different rescue groups for dogs. And they do these fundraising events throughout the year, but they have a big volleyball tournament at the end where all these volleyball teams, and there's a team Foxy, there was a team Squirrel, now there's a team Foxy, but there's basically all these models playing sand volleyball to raise money for dogs. Yeah,
Okay.
and I'm like, okay, I've arrived. This is really what it all comes down to. So that's a happy place. And then I also,
Let's go back to Squirrel real quick.
yeah, it's Squirrel.
So before the show, you were talking about Squirrel
Oh,
because
yeah.
Kathy had brought her.
Kathy knew Squirrel.
And so tell the audience about Squirrel.
Oh, gosh,
if they don't know who Squirrel is.
Oh, well, yes, Squirrel. So Squirrel and I had met unexpectedly, and she was with Recycled Palms for a pop-up fair they had, and they handed a dog over, and that was it. I mean, it was it. And so Squirrel had been in a puppy mill, which is really, really bad, so no,
Right.
rescue, please. And so they had bred her so much that they had broken her pelvic bone, and she could barely walk. And so I carried her everywhere with me, and she quickly became the mascot of my company, and we would do all these different, events to raise money for Recycled Palms or for Fido that she became the mascot for, and we would do events at Stanley Korshak, and everybody would bring their dogs. I mean, it was a whole thing. So we had a lot of fun doing that, but she was incredible and exceptional, and she's in heaven now, but I have Foxy.
Now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but I'm a huge advocate and have so much respect for people that are out there and really like fostering. There's such a need for fosters right now, and it's worse now than it ever has been.
And why is that, do you think?
Well, a lot of people associate it because of people during COVID getting all these dogs, and you don't think about it, right? So a lot of people aren't, again, being thoughtful, right? Or educated. So people will get dogs just because they're cute and they just want to have the dog, and maybe they just wanted a furry friend at home, but they're not thinking, does this make sense for my family? Is this the smart decision? What are the responsibilities that come with having a dog, and can I provide them? And it's unfortunate because that does happen a lot, but there are really amazing rescue groups like Recycled Palms, Ears, which is incredible that my friend Nora runs. She's so good. And Fido and Street Dog Project. I mean, there's just so many great rescue groups that make sure to place the right dog with the person. But that being said, there are situations where that doesn't happen, and like COVID and things like that, and people just taking the dogs, and so then they dump the dogs, and then they don't want the dogs, and then it doesn't make sense anymore, or it's too noisy, or whatever it might be, and so there's an influx of these dogs that are ending up back at the pounds, or and rescue groups, they have an overload, and there's not enough fosters, and it's just it's awful. And then there's bigger problems that need to go to the federal government, but.
So I'm sitting here thinking, because I'm a solutions-based person,
Right.
What could be done?
Yeah.
Right? So this doesn't continue to happen.
Right.
Because if it's the worst ever, I'm thinking, what's it going to be like in 5 or 10 years from now?
Yeah, no, it's scary, and I think number one, doing what you can, donating when you can, supporting by fostering or building awareness so that there can be more fosters, adopting, stop breeding, I mean, I understand a lot of people want a specific dog, and I understand all that, and if a dog is alive, that dog should be given a forever home, but I think just training people and educating people, about rescuing, and then also making sure that people are being thoughtful about bringing in the right dog for their family and their home. And then, my friend Nora with Ears, which is a great, great group to follow. They really educate you on, what can you do on a local level, what can you do on a national level. But it's a struggle. And there's a lot of help that's
Do
needed.
they specialize? I mean, there's the rescue palms. Does EARS specialize in, or is
So
a
EARS
certain
just
breed,
a
or
lot
is it
of
just-
different ones, but they're known for its education, animal service, rescue.
Rescue service,
Yes. But yes, so, and I can share that information too, but they're really good at educating, which I really appreciate, and they're amazing. But yeah, and there's all different rescue groups, and they're all important. So, and you can have them for different breeds, just like if you want a palm.
Yeah.
You can get a recycled palms. But then also there's outside of the dogs. You know, I have a friend, Nestor, that has a farm that he and his partner have called Bella Hampton Farms. And they have over 300 rescue animals right now, including goats. And there's a kind of goat that if they're born with the wrong, like, clef or whatnot, like, these goats just get, like, slaughtered. And so they've rescued these. And my personal baby is named Milkshake. And that goat is on the farm, although I'd like it to be in the high rise.
Is that a farm here locally?
Yeah, it's just like 45 minutes away. It's amazing. I can share that information with you too.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, and they support other local farmers too, so it's pretty cool.
And you started to say something a while ago about, you know, not only animals, but you're involved in other things as well.
So lots of different rescue groups, lots of different charities. You know, but one of the things that I've been doing a lot of over the last 9 years, and specifically the last, I guess, almost 3, is caregiving. And November is actually National Family Caregivers Month, which
Yes.
I didn't even know
I didn't either till
was
you
a
brought it
thing.
up. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I just found this out, and I am like literally a full-time caregiver
Well,
on
then
top
we
of
are in
everything else.
November. This is a great
I
time
know.
to talk about it.
I know.
Yeah.
So yeah. So you know, I caregave for my mom and my godmother that both had cancer, and you know, I've had a lot of caregiving in my life with the cancer journey, and so I definitely know the rhythm and the drill of it. But in the beginning of 21, my father got COVID pneumonia. And so he's now 95, so he was 93 at the time. And so he went into a COVID unit, and they called me in. They said, you can come in and say goodbye. And, you know, I thought, that's not what we're going to do here. And so, you know, it's very, you know, it was a long process. So 2.5 months later, we got out of the hospital and went into rehabilitation, skilled nursing, and then I got him home 6.5 months ago. But, you know, I was thrown into a whole nother world because, you know, he was running his life and doing everything, and he just went non-responsive one day. And he never got out of that place to be able to go back to the computer, really, or to do bills or anything. So it was and the healthcare system, and especially, you know, the healthcare system is so messed up on so many levels all the time, but especially during COVID, right? Like that was such a really challenging time. So anyway, so yes, you know, that was a lot to handle.
What was the, if you had to quantify, what was the biggest, like, obstacle that you had to overcome during that time?
Oh my God, there were so many. I mean, there were so many. So many. I think that whether it was trying to, you know, advocate for his life and being there when they didn't want entrance. You know, I mean, we were in a COVID unit for 8 days. I couldn't leave the room. I couldn't go in the hallway because they said if I left, I'd have to quarantine for 2 weeks and come back. And at this point, I was only there to say goodbye. They were ready to, you know. And then they finally released us, but they forgot oxygen. He had been in respiratory therapy, yeah.
Right.
And yeah, so we went back into the ER. I mean, everything is a challenge and an obstacle. You know, getting him into a place that would allow me to be there for assisted, you know, living rehabilitation, having people knock us off insurance constantly because they look at his age, you know, and year of birth, and they just think, oh, that's good enough for his baseline. You know, people not caring, people giving him the wrong medication because they're not paying attention. You know, trying to run a whole business while doing all of that.
So
figuring
going
it
through
out.
that experience, do you think that was just because of the times and COVID, or do you think
No.
that happens every day?
All the time. And I think that, you know, I was in it so deeply, and you don't have a minute to like see things on this level because you're constantly, you know, trying to put out fires and trying to manage things, and, you know, even like trying to figure out like, oh my gosh, like how are we going to do this? Like, do I need to put him in a home? Do I need to do this? Like, you know, there's something all the time, like just gosh, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, he had his appendix ruptured. Like at 94, like what? Like, there's constantly something, right? And even managing, do you bring in independent caregivers and what does that look and how do you manage them? And, it's just constant one thing after another. And, he has Alzheimer's now. So like there's a whole thing that comes with that. And, it's just constant. But what I didn't realize is that like I have so many challenges, right? But yet, I can project manage anything, right? So I make it into a business. So like I've got this, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I can delegate
Right.
and I can
But there are so many people who don't.
that don't have that, right? And then also the tools that we have are so limited and the resources are so limited. And yes, there is, there are places you can go and help that you can seek, but it's complicated because it's a constant like you're just trying to figure it out. And like there's not one place that has all the answers. And there's so many mistakes and trials, like it's beyond. I mean, I've thought of so many times of like, oh my gosh, should I write a book like on how to do this? But like it is, I figured out certain things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm constantly have the radar of like, have the management companies changed at these, facilities? Like, because there's some, it's a whole thing, right? It's a whole thing. But I've learned a lot. I have a lot of information. I know I've through trial and error, but it is a full-time job and it is exhausting. And, I was talking to somebody the other day who is an advocate for family caregivers, which I didn't even know that was a thing until recently. And I'm an only child, and she's an only child, and I don't have another parent anymore. It's just me and my dad, and it's just beyond overwhelming. And it was really amazing to like kind of be like, oh wow, like okay, I deserve to feel this way. And I was telling her, I was like, I have a hard time, like I'm so honored and privileged to be taking care of my dad, but sometimes I also think, well, I didn't have human children, and like this is very much like having a human child. Like we're dealing with incontinence. I'm like, okay, Dad, we got to go to bed. Okay, we got to get you in bed.
Right,
like,
right.
Okay, we'll turn on the TV. We'll turn it off later. Oh, do you need your ice cream? Like, okay, finish that on your plate if you want your ice cream. Like, I'm like, I'm so exhausted, but I'm like, oh, this is what like my friends that had human children, this is what they've all gone through. Like, this is okay. This is, I can handle all this. But the difference is that I'm not raising somebody or caring for somebody to go off and have an independent life. I'm caring for somebody towards the end of their life. And so there's a lot of different emotions that, come with that. And it's a little bit different to navigate. So anyway.
What do you do in the overwhelm?
Oh, I have tools. So if you don't have tools, thank goodness I found that. Because, yes, I feel very fortunate. I am very fortunate to have things that fuel me and heal me and provide wellness for me, and, each to their own, right? But, I do spin class, a Terlingo cycle, and that has been very healing and grounding and very good for me. I have a yoga class I love called Casa Yoga. That is like this stretchy, yummy, like it's like therapeutic yoga, but it's very meditative. I love breathe meditation and wellness, which is like, oh my gosh, that's just like my happy place. So yeah, I love ozone, sitting in the pod. I have a lot of really good tools. So I try to keep myself, balanced. I sniff a lot of lavender oil.
Because if you don't take care of yourself,
Yeah,
you're not going to be able to take care of him.
absolutely. And
Right.
I don't think I knew that when I was caregiving for my mom. Like, you hear it all the time, put the oxygen mask on first.
Sure.
But when you're in it and you're just like overwhelmed and it's like, you've got to do it all, okay. And then I just don't think I understood that concept.
Because it never lets up, does
No.
it?
No. And there's always another bomb. I mean, such is life. But, it's, yeah. So I've learned and also I think just accepting death. Like, I have a real hard time. I'm like, you will not die.
Well, making it to 100 at least. Yeah.
But no, I mean, just the other day, like, my dad turned 95 in October, and I was like, he's going to die someday. And everybody's like, really? But like in my head, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I will keep this family. But he is very happy. I will say he is so happy. And in fact, I asked him this morning, I said, Dad, I said, I'm going to go on this podcast. And he's done tons of podcasts, you know, about, you should have him on. But I said, you know, what do you think I should talk about? Like, do you want me to say anything about like the department stores or about, you know, anything in particular? And he goes, well, maybe just about the neighbors. And I'm like, the neighbors? Like, what about our neighbors? And then listen to what he said. He's like truly the most amazing human. He said, and I wrote this down. This is verbatim. This is just off the cuff. He said, remind people that we are all in this together and we should be kind to each other. He goes, it's pretty basic and fundamental. Like, I could cry. Like,
wow.
He's amazing. So.
It is basic and fundamental, right? Just being kind to one another and treat people with respect.
But isn't that amazing that that was his, you know,
Wow. Sounds like a wonderful man.
He is.
And I would love to have him on the show.
Well, we can do this.
Okay, fantastic. I'll get in touch with you later.
Yes. And he has lots of lady friends. So another thing I do in my, you know, time off is I drive him to one in particular. We have dinner. It's beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah. He has a lot of big fans.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I love that he's still living life.
Oh, he is.
Right?
And he's very charming and very happy.
That's great.
Yeah.
Going back to your childhood, like, was there something someone besides family who influenced you? Like, how did you get, I know you said PR kind of just fell on your lap, but who molded you? Who like really had your number?
I was lucky to have a lot of angels around me because I was a wild child. And I'm not sure my parents were that well equipped to manage it other than like, let's put bars on the windows, let's get a louder alarm system. So I was lucky to have a lot of people in my life that saw me and understood me and were also able to give me that kind of grounding, you know, so that I landed on my feet at all times. So I got very lucky in that sense. But the PR thing, I'll be really honest with how that happened. So again, like I understood talent PR, right? So at some points, you know, I've always thought like I'm going to be like Ari Gold from, what was that? You know, the TV show. Ari. Entourage, thank you. Yes. But then the PR thing happened when I was in LA and I had the store and I was dabbling in PR and it was the new Melrose Place. And a friend of mine was on it, so I was watching it. And it was the blonde that was the publicist. And I was like, oh. I'm going to be her. That's what I can do that. I can walk around in high heels with a phone and just be like, oh, I feel that. I was like, that's it. And I was like, I got it. So that was my, I don't even know the name of that actor. Like, I don't even know if she was ever on anything else. But yeah, that was it.
That was it. Great. Well, as we wrap up here, I want to ask you a few questions. One is, if you had a person that was living that you could meet, who would that person be?
Somebody that's not living?
That is living.
Oh, somebody that is living that I've never met?
That you haven't met, that you would love to meet.
Oh, dang. Is that like local, national, international?
It doesn't matter.
Oh my gosh, see, these are the ones, I knew this was gonna happen because I asked Kathy, I go, okay, I need the talking points and I need to, because I usually have clients on here and I prep them and I'm like, he's gonna ask me a question and I'm gonna be like.
But say that, this is the beauty of all this because it puts you on the spot.
Oh my gosh, okay, can we circle back next?
Yep.
Next question.
Okay, so next question.
Oh,
is there
who
a
would
place
it be?
that you
Matthew
would want to go?
McConaughey.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And his wife can come too. I love his wife too. I'd like both.
Okay.
Yeah.
You'd like to meet both?
Yeah.
So I'm going to put this out there because Kathy's been trying. We've been trying to get him as a guest on the show. We have a studio in Austin.
Oh,
and I would love, so I'll give you a call if we get him.
I'll come up.
You'll drive down with me?
I'll be part of it.
Okay, cool. So Matthew McConaughey. Where would you want to go that you haven't been?
Where would I want to go that I haven't been? I've been a lot of places. I traveled like abroad for like 3 years between Dallas and LA. So I feel very fortunate in that. But you know what? I would go to, Maybe Thailand. I've never been to Thailand.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I haven't been there either. It's a
Well, we
place
could
that
see.
I
We
would
could
like to
go with
There we
Matthew and his wife to
Right.
Thailand.
There we go.
See.
Okay. Well, now let's see if we can connect the dots with this. What would you like to do? What's an experience that you would like to have that you haven't had yet?
I want to go. Okay, I actually know this. Okay, this has been on my list. I want to go on a wellness retreat, but like somewhere really cool. But I don't know where it is. But I don't know. I want it to be like a really select, small group of people. But then maybe it's like one of those places in Santa Barbara. I don't know. Or like maybe it's going abroad, or maybe it's just going like in the mountains somewhere. But I haven't done that. Like I've done a lot of wellness like experiences. But I think it'd be so cool. Like I wanted to go on this one to Mexico this month. I was going to go, but I wasn't able to make it all work out. But yeah, that's.
So tell us about one of your wellness experiences.
Well, I just love breathe. I'm obsessed with breathe meditation and wellness.
Okay.
So like, I mean, and I have a lot of friends that are in that space and that are I just really believe like in always like self-evolvement and awareness. And so I just think we're on this journey, and I'm very curious, and I always want to level up and show up, in a better way for myself and for others. And so I think whether it's, meditating, whether it is doing the stretchy yoga, whether it's doing a sound bath class, whether it's, doing a reading, working on your core wounds, all those things, But I believe in that. I love the journey of just, self-awareness.
Yeah, I had my first sound bath experience about 6 weeks ago. It was amazing.
Where did you go?
It was at this conference. So it was in a big room with a lot of people, right? So I'm sure that's not the same as,
You have to come to Breathe Meditation and Wellness.
Okay.
It's across from Whole Foods and Lemon and Limo Alto, just down from Nona.
Okay.
Really good. Like the best.
She is in PR. She's giving
But I
so many
believe
shout-outs
it.
today.
But I believe it.
You've
like,
given so many shout outs. It's awesome. I love it.
I love it. I love it.
What is one thing what is your favorite thing to do for fun here in Dallas?
Be with my friends.
Be with your friends. And what do y'all do? What do you do? Just go over and hang out?
So I have so many different different friends that like to do different things. So I
Sure.
feel like I'm always so lucky to be able to have that kind of diversity. But I honestly, I don't really like doing the fancy stuff. Like I like more just the low key. Like so for example, some of our friends, they own Community Beer. Have you been there?
I have not.
Okay, see, that's amazing.
Okay.
So Kevin and Andy, they own it, and they have a really fun brewery, and it's really laid back, and like families go, and dogs can go, and they have really good food. And this Sunday, they're having something called Friendsgiving.
Okay.
Which is really it's just laid back and cool, and I like live music. I like going to festivals, like music festivals, but like really like cool and like bohemian,
Right.
like in a fun, cute way. Yeah. But I would do any of that stuff and like just be like in cowboy boots and like, or on a beach or just like at, a dive bar or like just be with my friends anywhere at their house versus all like, I'm so over the, it's exhausting.
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just want to be with my people.
That's great. I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So as we wrap up, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask Kathy to come up for a second.
Oh, do
She didn't know I was going to do this. Kathy, come up here.
Should we switch?
No,
Do I stay?
I want you to sit here. I warmed it up for you.
Are you proposing?
No, I'm not proposing.
You look like you were getting on one knee.
I'm about to get on one knee,
Oh my
so I
God.
can be at the same level. So, hi.
Hi, Matt.
So, this is Kathy's. Oh, I'm not in there.
There we go.
There we are. I'm in frame here. So this is Kathy's last day as the manager of the Matt Hilton Show, and she is moving on to other adventures in her life and going after her hoorah, as she calls it. So, I just wanted to thank you publicly for everything that you have done.
I just want to thank you. I just want to thank you because you literally saved me, and I love you, and we'll always be friends. There is, I think the main thing I want to tell everybody is this: he's perfect. I'm not leaving because there was a problem or anything. It's just I'm 61 years old, And I feel like I have one last hurrah in my life, you know, and so, and I want to try that. But we will
Yeah.
always be like
Oh, of
best
course.
friends, and I love you. You know that. I love,
Yeah.
love you. And there's big things ahead for you. I'm still going to suggest guests and everything. And Lucy Rubel, hint, hint, if you could call her and
She's
tell
cool.
her, she is very cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want
You
her to
know.
DJ my
Yes.
50th.
Okay.
So, but I
Well,
love
thank you.
you. Thank
Love you
you.
too.
Thank you so much.
No, I appreciate everything you've done. So, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, Allison, thank you so much for sharing part of your story and being here today. Is there, as we close and wrap up this live show today, is there anything that you wish I would have asked you that I didn't?
I'm sure there'll be 100 things in my head when I drive
When
out
you
of here. No, thank you. I'm just so appreciative. And Kathy, thank you so much, and congratulations on your new journey. But I love that you'll still be part of Matt's, and but yeah, I just appreciate it, and I just think
I'll be in the audience. I love the audience. I love.
maybe you'll be in this chair.
So.
And he'll be
she's
talking
been in
to
that
you.
chair.
I've
Been
just
there.
you've been there, done that.
How can people get in touch with you? At
Oh
your
my
PR
goodness!
firm?
I mean, call me anytime. I'm just kidding. Let me give you my cell. No, I'm kidding. No, I mean, how can people get in touch with me? I mean, I guess my email is
Do you
that
have a
what?
storefront? Do you have?
I
or do
don't
they
have
just
a
need to- Do you have a
storefront.
website?
Yes, but it's outdated because as any good publicist would, you know.
Well, if y'all need a publicist, get in touch with me, and
No.
I will connect you with Allison.
Can they Google you?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Yes.
Okay, we'll Google.
There we
Yes.
go.
Or my email is Allison with one L at volkpr.com.
Allison@bulkpr.com. All right.
One
Audience,
L.
thank you for being here. Allison, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
until next time, everyone, like and subscribe, and tune in next week as we have another fascinating person with an inspiring story. Bye, y'all.